Welcome to the Recycle Podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts,
Dr. LaFonya Jones,
Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall. Now, don't get it twisted. We're not going to be your stereotypical therapist.
What we will be is down to earth, informative, a little spicy, and vulnerable.
All right, interns, turn up the volume, grab your pen and paper. It's supervision time. As a reminder, this podcast is not meant to take the place of a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to Session 2, Trope Trippin.
We will be discussing the racial stereotypes for Black women. And next week, guys, we will not forget about you. We will be discussing racial stereotypes for Black men. So we will cover both genders. So today we wanted to discuss this particular topic because we think, obviously, because we're African American women, we thought that it was important to discuss this topic early on. As there are many stereotypes that we have to break through. So ladies, one of the things that I wanted to start off with was one of the quotes from Malcolm X. The quote goes like this, and it's going to sound like I'm reading because I am reading. So it sounds like this. The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. Again, this quote is by Malcolm X. And we still believe that this quote is important and still true today. And before you say, no, it's not, Black women are loved. Yeah, we love us.
I think we're loved. I think there's a difference between being loved on an individual level and then being loved on a societal level.
Yes.
And respected.
Yes.
So just think about that quote as we continue on in this session, and think about the things that we are about to reveal for education purposes for each other as far as our interns. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss is the perception of the angry Black woman, because it can take several directions. One is the experience of the Black woman and the history of a Black woman. We have experienced enslavement, all Black women and Black men. But the enslaved woman, she's had to witness her husband being beaten. She's had to witness her children being kidnapped and or sold and being raped. And one of the things that Dr. Wall brought up while we were just kind of discussing this topic is that our Black women are expected to experience those things and then have a smile on our face and act like it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, from the moment we have come from this country, you got to put yourself back into the mindset of someone that went through that. You were abducted from the only land that you've ever known. Mm-hmm. You go on a voyage that takes several weeks or months. You see people dying. You see people being thrown overboard. You're in these very tight quarters. And then you get here only to not speak the language, not be able to speak your own language anymore because it's not acceptable. You can't do anything with your culture. And then if you had anybody survive, they're all going to be separated from you.
Yes. Yeah. And then you were expected to raise the children of the men who raped you. You were expected to raise the children of the women who hated you. All being expected to not experience hurt, not experience shame or embarrassment. And those are just 3 emotions. There are a plethora of emotions that a Black woman could feel.
Yeah, it ends up creating a narrative that we are supposed to repress what we feel instead of express it. And of course, no emotion is right or wrong because emotions are amoral. Like that's not anything that we're arguing, but you should be able to properly express your emotions. But any type of expression was deemed inappropriate, and typically you were tortured. We're going to call it what it was in some type of way, whether it was, being beaten or lashed, sometimes killed, food taken away from you. It's just a multitude of things. So imagine generations of that, generational trauma. And then once we do start kind of getting some rights, a few, because even Black women, we still got rights significantly later than Black men did. And all of these different types of stereotypes became the reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
This topic is a obviously a touchy subject for all of us. It's because we are all Black women and we have all experienced this type of stereotype in some sort of way. We've discussed being the women that are approached. I don't know how to read you. And that's very irritating. It's very disturbing that you're wanting to read me instead of just having a conversation with me. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. Strickland, because I can keep going.
It's okay. No, it just makes me think about some of my own personal experiences. We've talked about a place that we've worked before, and that was probably one of the most common things that I think my boss at the time would say to me was, I just don't know. I don't know how to take you. I just don't know. Like, what are you feeling? I can't tell what you're thinking. And it was frustrating to always feel like you had to be on all the time.
That's draining.
Yeah.
It's so draining.
Or the classic one that I experienced growing up is, why are you not smiling?
Oh, gosh.
And I'm like, why should I be smiling? Don't you think that's like manic for me to be just going around like the Joker smiling at people? Like, I'm from Texas, so I totally get being friendly and saying hi to people because that's just culturally how most Texans are. But at the same time, like if I'm not frowning, why do I need to smile? Nothing's wrong.
Right. Yeah. They tend to think if we're not smiling, we're mad. Oh, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I'm literally sitting here listening to you talk.
It's my face.
You're telling me my face is not okay.
Oh my God, Dr. Strickland. I just almost got mad right there. You're telling me my face is not okay.
And that's not to say that some of us don't have, RBF, because some of us do. We do. But at the same time, like as kids, I'm pretty sure most of us did not have RBF.
Yeah.
But people also have to watch out for personalizing. Just because my face, my neutral face tends to have more of I hate to even say scowl because that's not what I mean. I think that's too strong of a word. But if my neutral face doesn't scream like jovial, that doesn't mean that there's something that I'm thinking in reference to you.
No.
Correct. Black women have so many things that we have going on in our minds at one time. Like Dr. Strickland said earlier, we have to, we feel like we have to be on all the time. So we're always trying to think of our next move, whether it's, okay, am I going to school? Am I going to work? Am I going to, what I got to cook for dinner? It's always something registering in our mind. It almost feels like we're manic in our mind because we have racing thoughts. And it's not that we're not, I guess, happy. We're thinking, a lot of us, especially when we make moves.
And given today's time, I think some of those thought processes are jumbled up with a lot of extra things that, given some of the more less tension driven times weren't, we were thinking more about household or like workload. But now we have all of these things going on and I still have to think about my work. I still have to think about my family, but now I'm thinking about things on a societal level that I have not really had to experience generally.
Yeah, especially for my generation and their generation, because I'm older. This is Dr. Jones. Don't be looking like y'all should see their face.
We're Zennials, me and Dr. Strickland.
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you what generation I'm in because I just had a birthday.
She's Gen X.
Oh, you just told my my business. But it's okay. So yes, especially for us that are in this generation, because we are more aware of the things that happened to our ancestors, and we are now experiencing the generational passing downs of the thoughts and the behaviors and the things that happened to our ancestors.
The trauma.
Thank you, because I couldn't think of the word. But
and I also think that we are also the children of individuals from the civil rights movement.
Yes.
So our, I guess some of them would be our grandparents and some older parents are, were part of that time frame. So a lot of those ideas and experiences, those people are still alive.
Yeah.
These aren't individuals that are dead.
That was only the 60s.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
people keep forgetting that. Like, that was literally the 60s. Like, that's not that far.
No.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so that's one of the reasons why we thought it was so important to bring this topic up, because we are not far removed from that time. And there are so many narratives about Black women that people have just taken and run with it. And it seems like we can't get from under it. Mm-hmm. And even for Black women, we know that we have many reasons to be angry. But when we show any type of expression, and please don't let it be angry, we're stigmatized.
Yeah. It's like, it's almost like we've been pigeonholed into a certain number of acceptable feelings,
Yeah.
And angry and happy are really the main two that are like, okay, so you can be happy, but if you're not happy, then of course you must be angry.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you said, Dr. Jones, that there's a plethora, there's thousands of other better descriptors for the feelings that we feel that are often not
accepted.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And we're often seen as too loud.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really took the time to learn about our culture historically, you would know that we come from jovial people. We come from people who were energetic and enthusiastic about different things that they did. We come from warriors, and we come from people who were artists and inventors of the world. So
eclectic type of people.
Why would we be expected to just be quiet and stand in a corner? That's like the opposite of who we once were.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, because a lot of us are not healed from this generational trauma, it does come out in some inappropriate ways, which will be a later podcast, not this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's affecting us now.
Yeah, the narrative that we've been given, not only does it stigmatize us, it makes us look or sound domineering, aggressive, and emasculating. We've experienced a lot. Our ancestors have experienced a lot, which was now passed down to us, because our ancestors were labeled as, well, the women were labeled as being the iron fist type of mothers. And you have to understand where that came from. They had to raise children that could learn how to be themselves, but also learn how to respect people who will beat them, kidnap them, or sell them if they act out of line. Or they had to put fear in them that, if you do this, if you do that, they'll kill your dad, they'll come and rape me, they can. So the Black woman was expected to make sure her child was able to function in society, and also be able to understand that if they act out of line, they could be killed.
It brings to mind, for anybody that's seen the movie 12 Years a Slave, it puts in mind the character that Lupita Nyong'o played.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the best performing slave out of all of them, but received some of the most harsh, the harshest penalties from all sides, really.
Wow.
you know, and I think that kind of speaks to that experience of, you know, having to always be more.
Yeah.
And be more for everybody and everything.
Yeah, she in that movie you see her wanting to just be able to be herself, because there was a light in her, but you also see that she had a relationship with the slave owner. The wife was upset about it. It was just so many different parts of her that she had to be constantly, and eventually there was going to come a time where she didn't meet somebody else's need for her.
And that's, again, why we feel like we have to be on at all times. The most educated person in the world is a Black woman. And that's because
statistically,
yes.
We're not just saying that because we're Black women. It's statistically the truth.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Wall.
Do your Googles.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason why, one of the reasons, I'm not going to say this is the whole reason, but one of the reasons is exactly what Dr. Strickland just said. We feel like we always, and I know that is a strong word, but an absolute, but always have to be better, have better, and do better. Because otherwise people don't see us, people don't take us serious. And even with us having better, even with us being 3 doctors, we still have to experience the having to perform because we're still not good enough.
And I think, so I feel like this episode I'm talking about myself a lot, but
Me too.
You are a Black woman.
It is. Yeah, I am. So, you know, just kind of piggybacking on what you were saying about, you know, having education, that it doesn't, in some ways that doesn't even matter. You know, a few weeks ago, I went to a medical practitioner and it didn't matter that I had a doctorate degree. And that education wise, that me and this other provider are essentially on the same level education wise. But I was still, you know, treated as if my problem wasn't worth their time in explaining. And, you know, the difference is that I don't mind asking my providers questions. I don't mind grilling them and like, no, you need to explain this to me. And I could hear the increasing frustration from my provider that like, I just wouldn't stop asking these questions because you're not fully explaining what it is that, you know, you're trying to tell me. And I remember when I got home, I had a complete breakdown because I was so frustrated because it felt like my provider really was not giving me the full story and that they just wanted to read a bunch of numbers off of a sheet to me and be done.
Yeah.
You have to plead your case everywhere you go. And it's tiring. It's stressful. Yeah. And I shouldn't have to prove that I am a human. Like I am. I just, like, God made me this way. I don't know about y'all, if y'all are aliens, but God made me this way.
Right.
The saying that constantly comes up, and I know a lot of other African American people will know this saying, is you have to work twice as hard to get half as much.
Yeah. To piggyback off of what you just said, I remember when we first graduated with our doctorate degree, my first job as a doctor, I was so excited. I started working there and they didn't even want to call me doctor. I was the only doctor in that location other than the medical doctors. They didn't have a problem calling the medical doctors doctor, and they were men. They did not. They even told people not to call me doctor. I had to fight. I had to fight for myself to be called doctor. I thought I was going to have a lawsuit because it was, they came to me every day probably about my first month there talking to me about calling myself doctor.
Oh, wow.
It's just sad to me. It's just like, we just out here living our lives, trying to be a good person. I remember going to school. I'm not going to say which school, because I don't need that problem in my life. But one of my friends and I, we were 2 out of maybe 5 African American women in our program, and the whole time it was racial tension. The whole time our names were said wrong. Now, take it, one of us has a cultural name, but that's not the name that she went by in school, and they would still knowingly pronounce her name wrong, or they would get us confused. It was hard. It was really hard to go through that program, and there were times where I just don't even want to be a therapist anymore. I don't want it.
Yeah, the name thing is definitely another one that we could do a whole separate
Misnomer.
about names. But I was listening to a talk that, if you watched Orange is the New Black, she played Crazy Eyes.
I know who she is. I did not watch the
series.
Show. Yes.
I believe, and I may say it wrong myself, but I believe her first name is Ozuamaka. And she talked about how her mother, when she was in school, she went to a predominantly white school, and everyone was mispronouncing her name. And so she wanted to just go by, I think.
Was it an Ozu?
Yeah, I think she just wanted to go by Ozu. And her mom said no. She said if they can learn to say Dostoevsky and Tchaikovsky, then they can learn to say Ozuamaka.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But to steer us back into, the tropes, I did want to go ahead and list what the tropes were so that everyone can know how many they are.
Yeah.
The first one, I'm just going to go historically how they came about. The first one is the Mammy, then Jezebel, then Sapphire or the angry black woman. Then you have the strong black woman. Then you have the ghetto girl, the sassy sidekick, the ride or die, and then the most new one, thanks to Issa, is the awkward black woman.
Yeah. Ooh, there's a lot to unpack there.
I'm trying to think about how to continue and elaborate on those, because there's so many, so much to unpack.
My first reference that I have, internally for the Mammy character, is Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
That's my first reference visually. That, and
she's
then
the one that was nominated, correct?
Yeah. I believe she was the first
one. Yeah.
I think she actually won Best Supporting Actress,
which is sad, considering we were in more films than that back then.
But, the Mammy character is that, when we talked about Jovial a little bit earlier, she was how now we have the white savior in film. Essentially, she was like the black savior. Like, I'm going to be
in line.
I'll keep everybody in line, and I'll explain why, these slaves are wrong, and, y'all need to respect the white man. And, and then being that physical support for, the main character, getting her dressed, and, just all of the things that took place during that time period. But that's kind of, that character. And I even remember it in cartoons.
Yeah.
My husband and I talk about this sometimes. There was a Mammy character. I don't know if it was in Bugs Bunny, but you only ever saw her hands. And
I remember that.
Yeah. So, she's usually a larger woman. This episode is not about colorism, but typically she was a dark-skinned woman.
Yeah.
It's a very specific visualization that's been tied to the Mammy.
She normally always has an apron on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's normally cooking.
and subservient.
Yes. It's similar to what we would probably call like the big mama or the grandma or whatever, but with more racial stuff attached to it.
Yeah. And I think as film kind of progressed on, that's where a lot of these additional stereotypes came in, or tropes came. Because you can't just stick with that one kind of flat character. As people start to engage more and interact more, let's throw a little bit more complexity in there, even though
that's
not really
complex at all.
That's not real complexity.
Because the next one is the Jezebel,
right?
And the Mammy and Jezebel are both come out of slavery. So let's start there. But the Jezebel is the over sexualization of the Black woman. And actually my dissertation was over that. My dissertation was called The Black Whore Complex. And so it kind of discusses how we were seen in history versus our true selves. And it's astonishing how, because my skin is darker, I must like to have sex all the time. And I must want that type of attention. And it's not a fact.
And I think that combined with the idea that, which we even have this issues now, implicit bias about Black skin and pain and things like that. Why we, if I raped you, well, you can't feel it anyway, because the idea that we don't feel pain.
Yeah.
And the opposite of that is the orgasm. Because if you orgasm during it, you must have wanted it. And they don't realize that's a physical response.
Yeah.
Now that's a trope for women.
Yeah.
That's a general one. But I agree with you still on that.
And I believe that the idea of we don't feel pain comes from us not showing the pain. We don't show
not being allowed to show the pain.
Yeah, thank you. Because I was getting ready to fix that. Go ahead.
Oh, I think even if I believe I know where you're going, I think of something a little bit deeper than that is that we were not seen as human beings.
Yes.
That we were seen as animalistic. So you could be cut and slaughtered essentially like an animal because, think about how our industries now, we don't really care much about, and this is not like a vegan like thing. So people please don't even start on that road. But, the way we kind of deal with the meat industry now. Oh, sorry. So, yeah, I mean, I think a little bit deeper based off if I'm going where I thought you were going, that would be a little bit extra, sprinkle on top of that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, because back then, what was it, 1/4 of a person? 1/3 of a human? Something like that?
3/5.
Oh.
Something.
Yeah.
Either way, it wasn't whole. I was like, how you divide a person?
Right.
Like, when you think about slavery and racism, it's so ignorant. It's just like, so y'all wasn't happy, so y'all wanted to force that on us.
Right. And that's, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but I don't understand the concept of slavery. I mean, I know what it is, obviously, but I'm just like, why would you want to, what?
Power. And American slavery is very different than slavery around the world. I think we need to kind of make that distinction because slavery around the world, you had an opportunity. You were integrated into the community in some places. And it was more of an indentured servitude kind of thing versus like, I own you as a piece of property.
Yeah.
When you think about Romans and, even in Africa, like you could earn your way out of, now it may have taken you a long time.
Your whole life.
Right. Yeah. It may take you a long time, but you had the option and the opportunity to earn your way out of that status.
Yeah.
Versus American slavery, everything was built on keeping that institution alive.
Yeah. Even their kids.
Yeah. Which is why, since all of this has come up with the anti-racism protests and everything, America was forced to end slavery. And that's how they treat us. They treat us like they were forced to end slavery, even today.
But Sean King, he posted earlier today, and he had a picture, a painting, I'm assuming, of the signing of the proclamation. And it literally had dots on 75% of the people. And those dots, those red dots, represented the fact that those people owned slaves at the time of signing the proclamation.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't really signing it, to get rid of the slaves. They were signing it as a power move against the South, because don't nobody want Texas to go nowhere. We are huge. And so that would have been a horrible thing for I can't think of the word, y'all, but for Texas to move away and create
secede.
Thank you. Secede from the Union. Let me get my Texas history back in my brain. But that's the reason why that happened. It's not because they were really trying to end slavery. They still had slaves after the proclamation. Let's be real about the situation.
Yeah.
But going back to our tropes, I think the next one is the sapphire and angry black woman. And the reason why we're saying sapphire and angry black woman is because it originated from, was it Andy and Amos?
Amos and Andy.
Amos. My brain bad, y'all.
Okay.
Amos and Andy. And they had a show that they used to put on, and it had a woman named Sapphire in it. And she was angry. She was very degrading to her husband. She embodied a lot of negative energy. And so from that, and because it was shown all over the place in America, that became what black women are, even though clearly it was a white man dressed up in blackface playing us.
Yes. And it wasn't until the NAACP fought for that show to be off the air that because Dr. Wall listed, some of our characteristics that our ancestors had, and they were mocked.
Yeah.
And made fun of. So it's like we can't even be ourselves without it being stigmatized. And that's why a lot of African American people don't know who they are, because we're not allowed to be who we are.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's not nurtured. It's forbidden. And what I'll say is, it's nothing wrong with people who decided to colonize places having their view of how they should be. But the problem comes when you put your view onto other people. Like, you just gonna ride in on your horse and tell a whole group of people who have cultures and norms that those cultures and norms are wrong, and you must now adopt ours. You must talk like us. You must dress like us. You must cook like us. Like, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
And the bad thing about that is that it's accepted by our own culture.
Yeah.
Because we, as black women, we are shunned from our own culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to go there because it can be an argument with black men, but okay.
But the angry black woman, an example of that we were talking about a few weeks back is the Tasha Smith character that was in
Why Did I Get Married?
I can't think of her name in the movie, but she
Angela. I think
is it Angela? If it's Angela, that's what we're gonna go with. How she talked to her husband, who was played by Michael Jai White, who was fine. Because I'll get out. Side note, but she degraded him. That's just a common example.
Yeah.
And another example, which is one of the movies that we're going to be discussing on our movie week, is the Diary of a Black. What is a Diary of a Mad Black Woman? When she found out her husband was cheating on her, and he put her out of the house, and she had a difficult time accepting Shamar Moore's love for her. She was seen more as angry, which
bitter.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I would think that's another behavior characteristic that's associated with the sapphire or the angry black woman is bitterness.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree with that.
A chip on your shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah.
Again, like we're not expected to have emotions. We can't be bitter because, you just need to accept it and go on.
It makes the person on the receiving end feel guilty. And instead of them dealing with their emotions, they're like, let me project that I don't want to deal with my emotions by not allowing you to deal with yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are very uncomfortable with other people's emotions. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's certain tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM. And something that Dr. Strickland was talking about before we started this podcast today was that from the angry Black woman, the strong Black woman was formed.
Yeah.
Which is not, it's a good thing and a bad thing. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So when I was doing research on this topic, one of the things that I found was that the strong Black woman trope was actually Black women's response to the angry Black woman. That essentially we kind of created this own trope on our own because we didn't want to be seen as the angry Black woman. But the hard part now is it has kind of backfired on us.
Yeah.
And now we're expected to always know how to problem solve, be the one to bear all of the emotional responsibility for our family and our friends, and not being able to, because you are strong and I can see that you can handle all of this stuff, more and more just gets piled on. And then we don't have a true emotional outlet. So then we end up with all of these medical issues and, physical ailments because we have, what's the word I'm looking for? We believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we believe the trope of the strong Black woman.
We have to do it this way. It kind of goes back to what we were discussing last time about stress and managing of responsibilities and things like that. The strong Black woman is a stressed person.
Yes.
Like, it's inevitable.
Yes. Which is probably why a lot of our physical symptoms, medical symptoms, don't look the same. Because we experience a lot of emotional and mental stress, which then creates the physical or medical condition. And so now it shows up differently. Just like with different cultures, in order for you to understand that they are either experiencing depression or anxiety, they have symptomatic physical symptoms helping us to determine that they're experiencing depression.
Yeah. When I was looking at kind of this topic and just kind of historical data, what I also saw was kind of there was a cross between, so the strong Black woman was kind of response to the angry Black woman, but she got crossed with the Jezebel around the 70s. So when you think about Blaxploitation films like
Foxy
Brown, Coffee, there were so many during that time. But you think, that strong, I'm not going to take no, sugar honey iced tea from anybody, that we haven't decided on how explicit the show is going to be yet. So
she used the acronym, y'all. Y'all that didn't catch that.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to take anything from anybody. You can't hold me down. I'm a warrior woman. That kind of idea came about around the, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And, like I said, we've kind of really taken that on as truth.
Yes.
And to make it more palatable, they sexed it up. Because I don't know no real Black woman that's walking around like that with a crop top on and tight pants and stilettos. Like, I don't know.
And running and fighting in it.
No. Where's my sneak?
With a gun.
What's the classic thing? Let me take my earrings off. Let me put my hair up. Nobody is fighting pretty. Like, I don't know who made that rule. Like, that's weird.
Yeah. And unrealistic.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I found was that a lot of this was filtered through white men, that these visualizations and these characterizations of Black women was through the ideas of white writers.
Yeah.
The media is very powerful.
Yes.
And we're such a visual species. The more you see something, the more you hear it, the more truth kind of becomes,
Yes.
or how true it becomes for you. So a lot of these things were not necessarily stories that we created for ourselves. So I think that's another thing to also keep in mind, is that some of these tropes were filtered through the eyes of white men, and then later on, Black and white men.
Yeah. The next one on our list is the ghetto girl.
Oh my goodness.
And really, when you think about it, that has a lot to do with where you were raised, how you speak to each other. Like every state, every part of a state has different slang, and they talk differently, and depends on your education. So yeah,
I kind of think that the ghetto girl and the ride or die girl can go together, because they seem to be
they in the same area.
Yeah.
To me, the ghetto girl is, Dr. Strickland and I was talking about this movie. Now, y'all might not know this movie. Me and Dr. Strickland like a lot of B films, C, D, E films. And there's this movie that came out
early 90s.
It's called Another Girl on the IRT. If my mom is listening, she's like, oh my gosh, she's mentioning this movie again. Because I used to watch it all the time. That, and we love The Last Dragon. That's our favorite movie. Yes, Bruce Leroy. Anyway, I met him in real life, y'all. Anyway, that is a depiction of the ghetto girl, Another Girl on the IRT, and it kind of goes through the struggles and the hardships of being raised in the inner city or the hood, aka the neighborhood, and how that particular type of person may not have a lot of the same luxuries and necessities that other people have, but it doesn't necessarily make them a bad person, even though they are seen in a negative light.
Because you become the person of your environment. Like our environment has a lot to do with who we become, what we sound like, the language that we use, because it's no way that, you can't be affected by that.
No.
And I think that, it's kind of like where the dumb Southerner stereotype comes from as well, going back to how you sound and what our ears tend to like. And I was watching this one video, and they had the same voice actor read the exact same thing to 3 different audiences in 3 different accents, and then rate how intelligent they believed she was. And the British accent, they thought she was the most intelligent.
Yep.
And then when she used the typical kind of deep South, like Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia accent, they rated her as being the dumbest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, you see that even in how people are hired in the entertainment industry. Like you see way more British actors being hired that are African American, well, not African American, but of African descent than you do African American. And they're playing the roles that were African Americans. So it's a weird thing. But a lot of the world is whitewashed. And we don't really realize that. We separate ourselves into these different nationalities and things like that, when really it's either you were part of the indigenous population that was there before, or you were colonized and moved around. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Now the ride or die trope gets on my last nerve. So they know this.
Think Baby Boy for
Baby
people
Boy.
that need a reference.
Yeah.
I'm not riding or dying. Like I'm not going nowhere if you can't lead me somewhere, because I just feel like that's ignorant. Like I get being supportive. Being supportive is important to any relationship, but that's reciprocal. All relationships are reciprocal and should be mutually beneficial.
Yes.
Ride or die always in my mind is I'm dating a man baby.
Oh,
And I don't want to do that.
Give it to me.
You know, and I'm sure when we go through the male side, we're gonna have a version of the man baby for the women too, trust me. But it's a very, what is the word I'm looking for? It's a very restrictive stereotype to be in. I must always be by your side. You can cheat on me. You can go to jail. I'm not going nowhere. I'm gonna write you. I'm gonna come see you.
I'm gonna put money on your books.
And we gonna have conjugal visits. Like, it's all this kind of stuff. Like, I know, y'all, sorry, the sex therapist went somewhere else. But it's this thing of, I will sacrifice myself for you.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that, because I did one of my practicums with the prison system. I'll just say that. And one of my experiences was to go and visit the women's prison. And so I got an opportunity to talk to some of the, women and just some of the employees there. And I found it interesting that a couple of things. One, a lot of women were in jail for crimes that either they committed for their man, or that they were
They took the rap.
They took the rap, or they were there with them, and so they were guilty by association.
Yeah.
And then the second thing was, the women didn't have visitations. They were able to, but I was at, so my assignment was at the male prison. They had, on their days of visitation, boy, that line was out the door. But when I went to the women,
not as many.
Not at none. It wasn't as no many. I didn't see nobody, and I went on the day that they had visitation.
Wow,
that's sad. That's disheartening.
Yes,
Hurt my spirit a little bit.
I know. Just sitting here thinking about it, like, oh Lord.
Yes, not like no kids, no, like the men had they mistresses, they wives, they girlfriends, like
The rotation.
the whole rotation. I was like, what is this? What is going on with this?
Lord.
But
That's interesting.
But everything, and I would say that the ride or die definitely is a Black woman trope through and through. But I also think it is definitely a women thing too, because you think about like Bonnie and Clyde,
I agree with
that whole gangster,
Yeah.
What's the new movie? The Slim movie?
Oh,
Queen and Slim.
Queen and Slim.
It's permeated in our music. I think about Stand By Your Man. I mean, the title of that song right there, just Stand By Your Man.
Look at the new rap. Well, they're not new now, but the rap artists, like, they perpetuate that cycle of being ride or die. Like, you have, and I like some of these people, so I'm not saying nothing bad about them, but they fit the stereotype. You have people like Tammy Rivera and Waka Flocka. You have people like anybody today, Future. I'm just saying.
But a couple of them have gotten away.
A couple have gotten away, and they've been blessed. They've been blessed. But you have that sort of thing idolized and put on a pedestal, and so now it should be, in air quotes, the norm.
And the thing is, it's now gotten some women, not all, some women thinking that if they're not that way, they're not a good woman.
I'm not sacrificing myself. I'm sorry.
Me neither. Well, Dr. Strickland is married, so she already.
She not
sacrificing
sacrificing
herself.
I'm still not going to
Sacrifice her last name.
It makes absolutely no sense to go down that road. You're entrusting somebody who does not know you to have full care of how you move in the world.
Yeah.
The last one on here is the awkward Black woman, but I also think it's important that with the awkward Black woman, we talk about the Black nerds and the entrepreneurs and things like that, because that all is under that.
Okay. Yeah, I first found the awkward Black girl from Issa Rae.
Yeah.
It's probably been at least 7 or 8 years ago, when she had her YouTube series. And initially it was refreshing.
Yeah.
Initially, to see someone that was not, the stereotypical kind of like what we have now, like the love and hip hop, we're fighting all the time and yelling and screaming and throwing drinks at each other, or the overly sexualized, like I just can't get enough, or the sassy, funny best friend. Like it was interesting and eye-opening to be able to see a character that was very relatable.
Yeah.
But it's now turning into something that I think is becoming a caricature almost.
Which I think all of these become that caricature.
Yes. But
I agree with you. She was very refreshing because I feel like I was her growing up. I was super nerdy, a loner. Like that was very much so myself. So it was good to see myself, a character of myself being played out on TV and in her web series. It's a little weirder now. I mean, I feel like she's still playing true to character, but I think her character has evolved into some other tropes. And
yes,
I think it is, which is supposed to do that. Like, you're supposed to grow and develop and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what I liked about the awkward black girl idea initially was the complexity. You know, that you can be funny and you can like things that are not typical for what we would consider typical for black people. You know, like you can like anime, you know, now that's becoming something that's much more popular now.
Yeah, because Meg Thee Stallion like anime.
Right. But, you know, 20 years ago.
Nah, you said what? And even with that, eating sushi. Like,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but if you go back to our history, like, we've always liked Asian culture.
Yes.
If you really think about that, like, you didn't tell us nothing about Bruce Lee,
Wu-Tang Clan.
Wu-Tang Clan,
Yeah.
like all of that kind of stuff. So it has always been a part of us, but it not has to be, but I'm just saying it like this. It has to be presented in such a way that's acceptable to the community. And Issa kind of knocked that away, and we don't have to do it that way anymore. It's more acceptable to just be whoever you are.
Yeah.
I feel like her character allows well, I still see her as being refreshing. I know she has gotten some, you know, awkwardness. Well, I guess that's what it is. But but I still see her as just kind of being, I feel like her acting is just being her. Like, it's nothing.
She is Issa.
Yeah, like she's not putting on anything. She's just being her.
Yeah.
Like if she would have come in here and be on our show, it would just be her. It wouldn't be something different. It would just be her.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. And so I feel like she could be a very good example of us as just black women, just becoming comfortable with just who we are and owning it, you know? And now granted, will some of those dynamics or tropes, well, let's just say dynamics, will some of those change? Yes, because we get older, we get wiser, we get tired of different things, and we change. But for the most part, being okay with the changes and just being okay with being you, and the people who are not willing to accept you, then they just have to say goodbye.
Just to piggyback off of some of the things that Dr. Jones was talking about, that also creates the narrative that we do the code switching. So I don't know about y'all, but how I talk with my homegirls is sometimes different than how I talk in professional settings.
Of course.
Even in therapy, we code switch.
Yeah.
So how I am able to talk to one client is going to be different than how I can talk to a different client. And it's not the same thing as like outside in personal life, but it is based off of who the client is that's sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
But back to the regular code switching, we can't be ourselves in all settings, unfortunately. Working for Balance Beacon has actually been the first time that I can just be myself, because we're all black women.
Thank you.
You know, these are my bosses, you know. But we're all, as far as the doctors, we're all black women. And then we have a Vietnamese woman. She run the money. Then we have a Trinidad, and she is our front everything. She runs everything in the front, manages everything. Thank God.
Yes.
And then we have a master's level practitioner, and he is African American male. So we are all minorities, and so it's one of the only places that I've been able to just be free, be myself. I don't have to be one way when I'm in my office with my black coworker. I'm just me when I step into the place.
Yeah. I think that has been one of the most relaxing things about. Now, we talked last session about the stresses of business.
Owning the business, yeah.
However, outside of those factors, I think that has been one of the most relaxing pieces about being here is because we can be our rawest, truest version of ourselves. Like, oh, I'm almost getting emotional about it, and I'm not even, and I'm not even emotional
At all.
at all. I'll put the stoic face on you in a second. But it's just been so. A lot of companies say that they want to have a family atmosphere and they want everyone to feel like they are a part of the team. But this is the one time where I do feel like, even if we weren't the owners, that this is like, we talk about ride or die, Jesus Christ. That we really do, because I was going to say we ride or die for each other, and I was like, oh my God, I just did it. But in essence, what I mean by that is that we genuinely do support each other in all ways, whether that is professionally, whether that's personally. We are really a team, and I so agree with you that it is such a genuinely good feeling to feel like you can just be you.
It is. I and we're gonna not say the name of this place because me and Dr. Strickland work there. But I remember working there and being told that I couldn't wear my curly hair. Now, mind you, Dr. Strickland and I both have these huge puffs.
I sometimes wear mine.
Well, she
too.
normally has it in a protective style. That's why I didn't say it. But we have these huge puffs. But this one person, mind you, this one person, I'm not going to say her name either, told me that I could not wear my hair like that because it was offensive. Now, did I do it? No. I was like, you didn't hire me. Got a contract. I'm going to do what I want to do. And then another incident that ended up happening was my contract changed a lot over the years that I was there. We're not going to go into that.
Oh,
but I was told one thing from Dr. Strickland and the owner. And then probably like a week later, I was told something else by one of the upper level administrative people. And she put me on blast.
Oh, wow.
And so the black girl in me came out. And I had to write this very petty yet professional email. And I'm the type of petty professional email sender that sends it to everybody. And I was per this email from this person and this person, this is what was said, and this is what I'll be doing.
Wow.
Now I ended up getting a little slap on the wrist because other people didn't know what had happened, but once they found out what happened, they realized it. And it's that thing where you always have to, like Dr. Strickland said earlier, you always have to be on.
Yeah.
You always have to be like 10 steps ahead of everybody. Okay, did I do this right? Did I CYA? Every email that I ever got, I also blind copied to myself. Like, I shouldn't have to do that in a work environment.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Man. Just.
I don't even know what else to add to that because.
Me neither. We could do a whole episode. I feel like with that, we really do need a session about work PTSD.
Yes, we can definitely add that to the list.
Because that is something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. And I know this is kind of veering off topic from, the tropes. However, but it is something that Black women, we do experience, Black men experience. I don't think people really talk about the PTSD that comes from having to be on, always having, everything that you do is questioned and double checked and verified and all of this stuff. And then some people feel like they can talk to you any kind of way and you just kind of have to accept it because, well, what else are you going to do? So, I do think that that's something eventually that I would love for us to kind of dive into.
Yeah. I mean, cause even, during when we were going on practicum interviews, our first year of, practicum sites and stuff, I was wearing my fro and I was told when I actually did get placed, I was told by my supervisor, who was also African-American woman. She told me, she said, I love your fro. She said, I like that you wear it. She said, but when you go on interviews, you may not want to wear your fro because that will hinder you from getting hired. And of course, she was my supervisor. So of course I'm taking in what she's saying, and I understand what she's saying, and I get what she's saying, but it shouldn't have to be that way. If I want to wear my fro, I should be able to wear my fro.
Because that's the way it came at your head. I don't remember how my hair was when I did my interview. Do you remember? Dr. Strickland interviewed me when I started working at that place.
I feel like you may have had it pulled back into a bun.
It probably was.
Yeah. If I remember correctly. I think it was pulled back into a bun.
Oh, Lord.
And when I started working there, I wasn't even natural at the time. So I was.
You had straight hair.
I had straight hair at the time, and then after I started there, that's when I really started transitioning. At that point,
it's like, who gonna fire me now?
Okay,
right. And after she said that, I definitely wore my fro a lot.
Yeah. And of course you have different things that you abide by wherever you work, and don't show certain parts of your bodies and things like that. But some of the other things that we want to make sure and we discuss are also solutions to the tropes. And of course you can't eradicate them because we are not the ones that created them. So the people who created them would have to eradicate them, but being able to properly deal with them or adjust when it's kind of blatantly put in your face is something that we also want to discuss.
From a media standpoint, one of the things that is really important about working on this would be a term that I heard from a YouTuber that I follow named Chrissy. And if you're a dark-skinned Black woman, she is a great resource for support for dark-skinned Black women. But one of the terms that she uses is called corrective promotion. And I thought that was a very interesting term because, as you get older and you start to see the world in a different way, you can tell some of the ways that the media is very subliminal with how they insert some of these messages and these tropes.
Yep.
So some of that would be giving more layers to Black characters, versus sticking us as the token funny guy or the sassy, Black best friend, or
even in cartoons, because we discussed this. If you think about the cartoons that you've watched as kids, the darker complected person is typically the villain. Jafar, Ursula,
Scar,
the Shadow Man, even in our own
Talking
depiction.
about subliminal.
So it's unfortunately blatantly right there in our face.
And now granted, of course, who are we to tell anybody what roles to take in movies or cartoons or TV shows or anything like that, but those are things that we definitely need to be mindful of. I remember reading an interview that was including Angela Bassett when they did Monster Inc. And she didn't take the role because she didn't want to do the sex scene. And nothing wrong with Halle Berry. I love her too. But I'm just saying.
Monsters Ball.
Oh, Monsters Ball.
I was like, that's the cartoon Monsters Inc. I was like, wait a minute.
I was like, there was a sex scene in Monsters Inc.
Missed all of that.
It was Monster something. But
boy, Pixar getting in there. Okay, I got it.
But yeah, she didn't want to do the sex scene, and which was fine. And like I said, I'm nothing wrong with Halle Berry because I like her as an actress as well. But it's just that those are the types of things that we have to be mindful of as Black women, not to be treated as a Jezebel or the angry Black woman and depicted that way in the media.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think another part is the awareness of the stereotype that may be presenting itself and the self-acceptance of what part you may be playing in that.
Yeah. And that can be done through, various types of self-reflection, getting feedback from the people around you,
that you trust.
Yes. And, there's nothing wrong with asking people, how do they see you?
Yeah.
And what do they experience of you?
Yeah.
And then taking that information, what seems relevant, and then making whatever necessary changes from there.
Yeah. And not always relying on the heightened emotions that we experience. The thing is, we all have those emotions, and we have to make sure that when we have them, we process them, we check them so that we can make sure that, one, they're reliable. And then two, if they are reliable, how are you going to express that without being seen as some sort of trope or some sort of inappropriate, irrational woman?
And then, of course, we can always, if you're struggling, emotionally and mentally, you can always go to therapy. I mean, we're gonna plug that all the time.
Yes.
So interns, just get ready, because we're gonna plug therapy all the time. I mean, it would be weird of us not to. But if you feel and believe that this experience is something that is really damaging you, mentally, emotionally, then you can always talk with a therapist. And sometimes it's, so from a statistical spent.
That's all right. You can say it. You can say it one more time. Let's do it.
From a statistical standpoint,
See, told you.
Black people tend to stick with therapy longer when they have a Black therapist.
Yeah.
We tend to leave prematurely when we don't. So if you can find a therapist that you relate to, that is of similar descent, then that may be helpful for you. Now, of course, there's a whole lot of things that we can talk about finding a good quality therapist, but just for the ease of discussion today, if you can find someone that is, similar to you, then you may be able to kind of develop a quicker relationship and start working on those things that you find are difficult for you.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think another part is to understand it's okay to be, angry or whatever emotion you're feeling, because those tropes are going to they're going to hurt you. There's no other way to say it. They're painful. And for it to be 2020 and for us to still be seen in a certain light, it's hard.
Must be this volume control.
So, okay, interns, process your notes. Be sure to catch us next session and find us on all major platforms at The Recycled Podcast.
If you're a new intern, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thanks for listening. And remember, we are shifting and reshaping our psyche through healing conversations and connections, one discussion at a time.